All over the world today, there is crisis. And in fact, there is suffering going on all over the nations of the world. This period is very massive. And I don't think there's anybody amongst us that is not really experiencing the, the situation or the intense pressure that we're seeing or feeling around us. You might not be in Ukraine, you might not be in Russia, you might not be in America, you might not be in Lebanon, or wherever, whatever part of the world that these grievous situations and where all these, you might not be in Gaza where the heat is high, you might not be in Somalia, you might not be in Sudan, but it is very important also that in spite of the fact that we're not in those places or any part of the world like what we have seen today, which I'm going to go into later, the issue of Bangladesh and the Prime Minister leaving the country this morning and the people succeeding in taking, the step of succeeding in taking power into and proving that they own power and they are the ones to determine what happens in the country. It began with a student protest, and now it became a revolution. And now the Prime Minister is away, who has ruled since 2009, since for the past 15 years. I don't know why someone wants to be in power for life. Sometimes you begin to wonder how greedy the human nature is. But anyways, before we go into all of that, you might not be in Sudan, be in Gaza, be in all these places, but the truth about it is that the tension of the situation around the world is being felt by every one of us everywhere we are. And this calls for concern, as scripture says. Some of you don't believe in the Bible, some of you don't believe in scripture, but the truth about it is that that is what the devil wants to do, to keep you away from reading the scripture. If you are very conversant with the Bible, you will notice that what is happening right now is predicted, well predicted. It's something that you cannot but just know that the Bible is true, because we are not taken aback, we're not taken by surprise by the things that are happening. The crises are predicted, and the troubles, the travails of Israel predicted in scripture. So the more we think that things are getting bad, the more things get bad or get worse. And it will remain this way. It will continue to get worse until the Messiah becomes the King of glory, takes over the nations of the world, until the Messiah comes and takes control of the universe. And the Messiah is going to rule from Jerusalem, and that's what scripture says. And if you observe the trend of situations, you discover that it's tilting towards that end. People must come to understand all of this, but I'm not come to talk about that today. I'll create time to actually give you the apocalypse and the details of spiritual order that is controlling what is happening right now. But I want to take us into the drive, especially using Nigeria as a typical example of what I want to talk about today. We woke up today to hear the news. Of course, I mentioned it before. The Prime Minister of Bangladesh left, with a private jet to, whether private military jet or so, to India or wherever it's alleged she has gone. The people stood strong to make sure that their demands don't die. Over 300 people killed for the past 2 months of the protest in Bangladesh. And the Prime Minister presided over the death of over 300 people who are clamoring for change, reforms that will help to bring and give good life standard of living to the people. It sometimes baffles me how people always seek to suppress other people to make themselves comfortable, and how people enjoy the pain of other people and find pleasure in seeing to it that their people are suffering. Now, it is surprising also that, you see, people vote people into office in what is called democracy. And before they come into the office, they give promises, they give all they want to give. In the end, they don't keep to their promises. Rather, they end up killing the people for their own selfish gains. Now, I don't want to go international on this matter. I want to just first dwell on the Nigeria angle, and as a means of explaining further things about national and international operations and activities. But I want to draw your mind to something critical. I was watching a particular video. I think it's an excerpt of that video. It's showed Mr. Joe, an American, who was talking about what happened on the 20th of September 2001 after the 9/11, the Twin Towers were bombed and all of that. And he ran into one of the generals or one of the top military officers in the US or in Pentagon, and the man told him to come, that they need to speak, they need to discuss something and all of that. And when he went to the man told him that, did you know that it has been approved that we strike Iraq? And the man asked him, Mr. Joe asked him why, and he said he doesn't know. The general doesn't even know why he was told that Iraq should be attacked. And he was asking, and this was about 11 days or so, 10 or 9 days after, I think 9/11. 9/11 was 11th of September, and this was happening on the 20th, according to what he said. And he was saying, is Iraq or Saddam Hussein linked to the 9/11 bombing? And the general said, well, whether he said he doesn't know or he is not, just that there are some states, some nations that have been listed that chaos must take place. So there must be bombings, there must be destruction, there must be change of regime and government in those nations. And he mentioned Iraq, he mentioned Sudan, he mentioned Somalia, he mentioned so many nations. He mentioned Syria, Lebanon, and all those places. And this happened in 2020 and 2001. Now, check how many years ago, about 23 years ago or so. Yes, 23 years ago. And now, if you look at the sequence of events, you discover that the nations that were listed as at that time are the ones today, crisis everywhere in those places. Now, why was Saddam Hussein killed when he is not linked to weapons of mass destruction, building of nuclear weapons, as alleged by the regime then of George Bush? And yet nothing was done to George Bush, nothing was done to that regime, nothing was said, nothing was done. It's just they set him up and killed him, and nothing happened. And from that moment, that time till now, Iraq has not been linked to the bombing of the World Trade Center in New York, the Twin Towers, and Pentagon, and Pennsylvania, and all of that. And the things that happened, Iraq has not been linked. There's no trace of weapons of mass destruction or nuclear weapons being built in Iraq. Nothing was said about it. Nobody was taken to court. Nobody was indicted and jailed for that. George Bush is still alive. Nothing has happened. Nobody's talking about it. The nations they listed as at that time that they want change of regime and all of that are all in crisis today. Lebanon, Syria, Sudan, in Africa, Somalia, and other places. There are crises all over in those places today. Now, then the big question becomes, who is behind the crisis, the global crisis? Because if Pentagon had a list of nations where crisis should, where change of regime, or there must be change of government, or there must be wars in, as of 2001, they had the list, and Mr. Joe was talking about it. Then who then is behind the killings and the wars all over the nations of the world? Now, why are the wars needed? Why are the wars a desire for those behind the wars? That's the big question we should be asking. Because if we want to talk about Africa, definitely the situation of Africa is linked to all of this stuff. Now today, there is protest. Today is day 5. Today is, yes, the 5th day of the protest going on in Nigeria. And you see, I believe that whenever we want to do a thing, we should have enough knowledge towards why we want to do a particular thing or the reason why we are embarking on such. Please, as you watch this, like this video, share on all your social media platforms, because we shall be discussing very critical things in this light that will help us to understand basic things happening around us. Now, I've just given some briefs on the international scene, which I'm going to expand or elaborate on as we go on in this particular discussion. Now, let's look at it critically. Nigeria is protesting. Kenya had the protest, and they actually forced the government to change the policy that IMF wanted to impose on the country or the Kenyans, to impoverish them, put them more in slavery, and destroy them. Who are those fronting all of this stuff? Who are those in charge of IMF? The United States. Who are those in charge of the GMOs and all of that? The companies belong to Bedrock, which is of the United States. The businessmen, the globalists who are controlling the dictates of the world, what they determine. They control the economy of the world by controlling the farms, controlling the medicals, controlling security, controlling everything that is typical or critical or that is directly linked to everybody. Security is linked to everybody. Food is linked to everybody. Health is linked to everybody. Everything that would make the people. Then media, controlling the media also, because media is linked to everybody too. We want to connect to media. We want to know what is happening. People want to come on screen and know what is happening. They want to play games and all of that. Along the line, they get to know what is happening. They get to get stories and all of that. These things are fundamental. Now, these people have distracted us for so long and put us in this particular situation. Now, I'm going to go to the Nigerian narrative here. Please subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed. Subscribe so that we can send this message far and wide. All right. Now, I'm going to go going on to part 2 of this now, because I don't want this